What's up everyone? Today we'll be checking out the card game Iron Future and I'll be showing you how to play it. It's a fast-paced card game for 2 players and created by my friend Matt Hurd. It mixes elements of deck-building card games and dice-based tabletop war games to create a fast-paced duel between 2 players. Each card is a love letter to the video games of the 90s with its 16-bit pixel art. During the game, players take turns deploying their forces and securing resources by either eliminating or overwhelming their opponent. Between rounds, players trade these resources for bigger and better units to upgrade their deck. The future of 2150 is so bright, as the collapse of the military-industrial complex has reduced once mighty nations to opportunistic factions scouring the bones of the old world. Players will need to build their forces up from a motley crew of infantry and farm equipment by securing resource-rich areas and trading the spoils for tanks, orbital weapon platforms, and ground-shaking mechs. You build, you battle, and you conquer. Now that you have an idea of the game's narrative, let's dive into what's in the box and then go over the rules of the game. Checking out the box, we've got a simple design with the logo of the game on top. The logo definitely has that 80s, 90s feel of an old retro video game like Contra or something along those lines. I look at that logo and it just speaks 80s retro video game, and I'm all for it. Surrounding the box also features amazing 16-bit art based on the cards, including some really great ones. On the bottom of the box, we get a little taste for what the cards look like, and some of them, one in particular, is Matt's personal favorite card, and that's Goblin. Column's card is also featured on the back of this box, and it is by far my favorite card in the game. This is a 2-player game for ages 14 and up, and each game takes roughly 45 minutes to play. On the left, we have all the contents of what's inside the box and everything you'll need to play this game. If you're interested in purchasing Iron Future, visit www.ironfuturegame.com. The cover of the box itself has a magnetic flap, which is very cool and convenient. Inside the box, there's a nice foam insert with a cards section and a token slot. All the cards come wrapped and the tokens in this small Ziploc bag. Now, let's get to the rules. These can be found on the How to Play booklet inside. The objective of the game is to win 3 Conquest rounds. In Conquest rounds, players take turns deploying forces and capturing resources by overwhelming the opponent or destroying them. Between each round, there's an acquisition phase, where players can spend the resources acquired during the Conquest round to purchase new cards and deck upgrades. Let's take a look at the setup. Place all resource tokens and damage tokens into 2 pools within reach of each player. Separate the cards into 2 piles, the location deck, whose back is green, and the unit deck, whose back is blue. Remove the starter units from the unit deck, identified by their orange nameplates. Next, deal 2 Rabble cards, 2 Harvester cards, 2 Grunts cards, and 1 MBT card to each player. Each player then shuffles their cards to form their personal starting deck of 7 cards. This personal deck will grow throughout the game as you purchase cards in the acquisition phase. Shuffle the remaining unit cards to form the acquisitions deck and set it aside for now. Next, shuffle the location card deck and set them face down between the 2 players. Now that setup is complete, each player rolls a dice and the player with the highest roll takes the first player token and the Conquest round begins. At the beginning of each Conquest round, each player draws 5 cards from their personal deck, keeping them hidden from the other player. Before continuing, let's take a quick look at the cards. Let's kick things off by looking at 2 of the starter unit cards named Grunts and MBT. The first thing we notice on the card, like every card, is some awesome retro art. Let's take a moment to appreciate how radical this artwork really is. At the top of the card is the name of the unit. Below the art, to the left, is armor value, representing how many damage counters the unit needs to suffer before it is destroyed and removed from play. Below armor value is the capture value, representing how good a unit is at securing a location. Below capture value is cost value, which is how much players need to pay to add this card to their deck during the acquisition phase. In this case, these are the starter cards and are free. In the box to the right, you'll see type, which are keywords you'll need to know throughout the game. Some special rules may target certain unit types and keywords. The Grunts card type is infantry, whereas the MBT is vehicle and has tracked. On the Grunts card, you'll see Retaliate 1. This is the Grunts unit special rule, where when a unit is deployed at a location where the opponent has one or more units with the Retaliate special rule, the deployed unit immediately receives a number of damage counters equal to the highest Retaliate value among all units at that location. No dice need to be rolled as the damage is automatically applied. For example, a player has Grunts and Wendigo deployed at a location. Grunts have Retaliate 1 and Wendigo has Retaliate 2. Enemy units deployed at the same location as them will automatically suffer 2 damage counters, as Wendigo has the highest Retaliate value. Some units like Wendigo also have a passive special rule that are always active. In this case, Wendigo's Rend Steel special rule grants critical damage against types that are vehicle and mech. I'll explain critical damage soon. Harvester has an undeploy special rule that immediately triggers when it is deployed to a location. Flipping back to Grunts and MBT, the bottom of the unit cards are the weapons carried by the unit. Some cards, like Grunts, have multiple weapons. Dice is the number of dice players roll when attacking an enemy unit with that weapon. Range is how far the weapon can target an enemy, and there are 3 ranges. Those are short, medium, and long, shortened to S, M, and L. We'll go over attacking shortly. That's it for the unit cards, so now let's continue the Conquest phase. Draw 3 location cards and lay them in a row between the 2 players. Place resource tokens equal to the resource value on the location cards. The player with the first player token now deploys a unit card to one of the 3 locations and makes attacks if possible. Now that the first player has resolved their attacks, the second player deploys a unit card to one of the 3 locations and attacks if possible. Both players repeat deploying their units until all 5 cards in their hand have been deployed. Both players must deploy 1 card every turn. Next up, let's go over attacking enemy units. Let's now take a look at attacking enemy units, once again using the Grunts, MBT, and Rabble unit cards as examples. Grunts is deployed to the same location as the enemy Rabble unit. There is also an enemy MBT unit in the location next to the Rabble. Immediately after deploying, the Grunts can attack with all of their weapons. Their 10mm rifle has a short range, which is the same location Grunts is currently on, as well as the enemy Rabble unit. The Grunts underbarrel launcher is a medium range weapon that can attack enemy units at locations adjacent to the location they're currently on, and in this case, the enemy MBT. So Grunts can fire at both the enemy Rabble and MBT. Weapons cannot split fire if there are multiple enemies at the same location. For example, an MBT must always roll 3 dice when attacking an enemy unit with its 105mm cannon, even if there are 2 enemy units at medium or long range. Combat units cannot attack with weapons if there are no enemy units in range of the weapon. As stated in the unit card, Grunts roll 1 dice when attacking the enemy Rabble with their 10mm rifle, and 1 dice when attacking the enemy MBT with the underbarrel launcher. Attacks are always made separately. Grunts attack the Rabble and roll 1 dice. Rolls of 3 or more damage enemy units, and therefore damage the enemy Rabble, who then apply a damage counter onto the unit card. Rabble only have an armor value of 1, and therefore are destroyed for taking 1 damage token. The Rabble card is immediately removed from play and placed in the player's discard pile. Grunts now attack the MBT with their 1 dice and roll a 6. Rolls of a 6 deal critical damage, causing the enemy unit to suffer 2 damage tokens instead of 1. The enemy player then applies 2 damage tokens to the MBT unit card. MBT units have an armor value of 3 and therefore survive the Grunt's attacks. The Grunt's attack sequence is over, and now the enemy player deploys 1 unit card and follows the same steps. Damage tokens remain on the unit cards until the current Conquest round is finished, and all players have deployed all 5 cards in their hand. Let's take a look at another example. A player deploys an MBT unit at a location that is 2 locations away from the enemy Grunt's unit. The MBT has a 105mm cannon and attacks with 3 dice with a range of medium or long. This means the MBT can attack an enemy unit at an adjacent location or an enemy unit 2 locations away. In this example, the enemy Grunt's unit is at long range, which is 2 locations away from the MBT. The player attacking with the MBT rolls 3 dice for the attack and rolls a 3, a 3, and a 1. The MBT has hit twice, and the enemy player places 2 damage tokens on the Grunt's unit. However, the Grunt's unit only has an armor value of 2, and therefore is destroyed and removed from play. That is it for deploying and attacking. Remember to follow any special rules for cards in your personal deck or locations during the Conquest round. For example, the factory location loses resources if attacks made at that location roll a 1 on the dice, reducing your reward if you win the location. Swamps are extremely dangerous for units that don't have the tracked keyword on their unit card and are hit on a 2+ rather than a 3+ like normal. Tanks, like the MBT, are great at swamp locations because they have tracked. To determine a Conquest round winner, simply count the capture value of each player's unit cards at a location. The player with the highest capture value wins that location. For example, player 1 has a Harvester and Special Forces unit at a location for a total of 3 capture value, as indicated by the capture value flag on their cards. Player 2 has Grunts and Rabble at the same location for a total capture value of 2. Therefore, player 1 wins the location. Players who win more locations is the winner of the Conquest round and takes 1 location card they've won and sets it aside next to them. This is to keep track of how many Conquest rounds a player has won, and whoever wins 3 Conquest rounds wins the game. When the capture value at a location is a tie, then no players win that location and the resource is wasted. Players who win a location then take the resources provided at that location and adds it to their personal reserve. These resources will be spent in the acquisitions phase. After the players have taken their location resources and the winner takes the Conquest round winning card, put the other 2 in the location discard pile. Set aside any resource tokens that were not claimed. The acquisition phase is where players can spend their hard-earned resources on new vehicle and support cards. Draw the top 5 cards of the acquisition cards deck and place them face up in front of the players. These are the cards available to purchase during this acquisition phase. Starting with the player with the first player token, players will alternate purchasing cards paying the resource cost indicated on the unit card. For example, Orca has a resource cost of 5. It's a great card, so well worth the cost. The Saboteurs has a resource cost of 2. For special rule, it has Retaliate 1, and its passive ability called Sabotage doesn't allow enemy support cards to be played. A very good card. If a player cannot afford any of the available cards or do not wish to purchase any of the available cards, they may pass. However, a player may not purchase a card if they've already passed. When unit cards are purchased, they immediately go in the player's discard pile, except for support cards. Support cards are placed face up in front of the player. When both players are done purchasing, the remaining cards are placed at the bottom of the acquisition deck. Players keep any unspent resources they may have left for a future acquisition phase. Now let's take a look at support cards. Support units function differently from the combat cards in your hand and are available for players to activate at the start of their turn, prior to deploying a unit to a location. To use a support unit, rotate the card on its side to show that it's been activated. Follow the rules as explained on each support unit card. Players can activate any number of support units on their turn. Support units may only be activated once per Conquest round, so use them wisely. Here's an example of my favorite support unit, Comscar. Players can activate Comscar to discard up to 2 cards and draw that many cards from their personal deck. Comscar is a very powerful support unit. With the acquisition phase out of the way, we can move on to the next Conquest round. The first player token now goes to the player who went second in the previous Conquest round. Draw 3 new location cards and place their resource tokens on top of them. Players straighten their support units in front of them to a ready position, and then draw 5 unit cards from their personal deck. When players run out of cards in their personal deck, simply shuffle the discard pile and draw the amount needed to reach 5 cards in hand. Throughout the game, a player's personal deck will increase as they spend resources on unit cards in the acquisition phase. Players continue playing Conquest rounds and acquisition phases until a player wins a total of 3 Conquest rounds. That player has secured their place in the Iron Future and is declared the winner. And that'll do it for Iron Future. I want to give a special thanks to Matt Hurd for letting me be part of the Iron Future playtesting crew and for providing me a copy of this totally awesome game. I absolutely love everything there is about Iron Future and am so addicted to it. To me, it's lightning in a bottle, and I can't wait to see where this game goes next. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, comment down below, and if you have any questions about the rules or anything at all, please let me know down in the comments. If you already have and enjoy Iron Future, what do you like best about the game, and what's your favorite combat card and support unit? Thank you so much for watching, and you can catch me in the next one.